Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. Today's video is going to be a fun one because I'm going to be duping my new Natasha Denona Love palette with Colourpop singles. I bought this palette on sale at Sephora. It was kind of a whim purchase, honestly. I wasn't gonna get it. I was trying to talk myself out of it, and then I saw Lauren Mae Beauty's video. She made a fall palette with this and the bronze. She like combined them to make her perfect fall bronzy toned palette. And I just loved that video and I loved the shades that were in here. So I just bit the bullet and decided to pick it up. It's probably not gonna go on sale again anytime soon. So yeah, I just got it. Was it a regret at first? Yes. So for that reason, I decided to try and dupe it with my Colourpop singles so that I can kind of see if it was a good purchase for me or not. Typically, I gauge if things are a good purchase, if they bring value to my collection or uniqueness. The value often comes from me being able to pop these out because I can put them in my kit. I have a lot of magnetic palettes for my pro kit, so I can just pop these guys out and use them as eyeshadow singles. So I really like the Natasha Denona palettes for that purpose. Not only for that purpose, but you know, that is definitely an added bonus. And I can switch them around in the palette so I can create my own color stories. I'm thinking about doing that. I'm thinking of doing like a Lauren Mae Beauty style video where I combine this one, the Zendo, and the Sunrise. So yeah, and creating like my perfect fall or holiday palette using those three. I haven't gotten to that yet because I'm still like testing out whether I like this or not. So I wanted to test out the shades and see if I could dupe it in my Colourpop collection. And if yes, then maybe it wasn't the best purchase for me. And if I couldn't dupe it super similarly, then I think it was a good buy. So yeah, and you can see how I did this look. I did one eye using Natasha Denona and I did the other eye using my Colourpop singles. I think it did turn out fairly similar, but not too similar. So I'm happy that I picked this up, spoiler alert. So yeah, if you want to see my duping palette, I'll show you it right here. So this is the real thing, very pretty. And then this is my duped palette. Also pretty, but not really quite similar. So you'll see the shades that I had a hard time duping when I do all the swatches for you. So yeah, if you want to get into the swatches, then just keep watching. Okay, so first off in the Love palette, we have this light cream shade called First. It's like a light matte pinky peach. And then to dupe this, I used the shade Crush from the Coast to Coral palette, which is a little bit brighter and a little less peach. So that's this shade right here, and then this is the original from Natasha Denona. Next up, we have like a sparkly gold shade called Lifetime, and this is actually one I had a hard time duping. It's super beautiful and reflective. This is what it looks like right here. And again, from the Coast to Coral palette, this is the closest I could find, but it's still significantly lighter than the Natasha Denona one. So from the Coast to Coral palette, this is the shade Atoli. So this is the Natasha Denona and this is the Coast to Coral. As you can see, this one is significantly lighter in its base, but they still kind of have like a similar undertone and vibe to them. Next up, we have the shade Heartbeat, which is a matte shade. And honestly, I wasn't impressed by this formula. It's like a mauvey red and brown. It's just a little dry for Natasha Denona, especially with that price tag. So to dupe this shade, I chose the shade Red Bottoms from the Main Squeeze palette, which has a little more of a red undertone as opposed to a purpley undertone. This is the shade Red Bottoms, and then this is the shade Heartbeat. But I actually kind of like the formula of the Colourpop one better, which is surprising. So yeah, that is my best dupe for that shade. Next up, we have another super pretty shimmery shade called Transparent. It's like a light peachy gold, and Colourpop is notorious for launching these kinds of shades, so I did find a pretty good dupe, I feel. I got this from the Bare Necessities palette, and it is the shade The Talk. It has a little more of a pink undertone to it, but when they're like flashing in the light, they're pretty similar. This is the Natasha Denona shade Transparent, and this is The Talk by Colourpop. Really pretty, very similar, but this one is a little bit deeper, I feel. Next up, we have a matte purple called Trust. This formula was also very dry. Like, you can see that swatch there. Compared to how it looks in the pan, this is very sheer, which again isn't really a bad thing. It's not patchy or anything, like it's not a bad shadow. It's just not packing the pigment I was hoping for. To dupe this one, it's not really a very good dupe, honestly. It has a lot more gray to it than purple. I got the shade out of the Making Mauves palette. It's the shade Marquee. So this is the shade Trust by Natasha Denona. As you can see, it's a bit lighter. I think because it does swatch so sheer sheer. And then this is the shade Marquee from the Making Moms palette, and as you can see, it has more gray and a little more depth to it. Next up, we have a bright true red in the Natasha Denona palette. This is the shade Heart. And to dupe this one, I chose the shade, Black Cherry from the Cherry Crush palette. Very similar. I feel like the shade Heart from Natasha Denona, this one here, has just like a little more pink to it, or maybe it's just a hair lighter, but overall these two are very similar. Again, I feel like the Colourpop one almost has more pigment, which again doesn't make it like a better formula, but it is something to note if you really care about pigmentation in a shadow. Next up, this one I had a really hard time duping. It's super beautiful. It's the shade Giving. It has like a orangey pink base. It has pink glitter that also shines like goldy champagne. So you can kind of see the pink shift there. I'm gonna see if I can get it to shine gold. You can see like the copper base there, and then it shifts pink. I don't really know if I'll get it to shift gold. Maybe there? No. Hopefully you can see it on camera. And then to dupe that one, I chose the shade No Flux from the, what is this called? Fine Feathered palette. It kind of has like a similar base color, but it doesn't really have the same sparkly effect. So as you can see, it does kind of shine pink, just not as intensely. And this one has a stronger duochrome to it versus this one is pretty non-duochromatic, and this one has really noticeable sparkle to it, whereas this one's more of like a smooth metallic. So again, they are pretty different. I had a hard time duping that one, but that's the closest I could find in my collection. Then we have the shade Pure Love, which is also kind of a duochrome. It's a warm tone purple that has like a bluey pinky purple shift almost. And to dupe this one, I used the shade Do or Dough from the It's My Pleasure palette. Not really similar, but I wanted to put something in there. I didn't want it to just be like an empty space. It doesn't have the warmth to the base that the Pure Love shade has. So this is Pure Love, and then this is Do or Dough from Colourpop. You can really see the difference there in the base color. When it flashes, it's a little more similar, and then you can really see the difference. Next up, I have the shade Commitment, which is a cream to powder formula, and I don't have anything in a similar formula to the Natasha Denona cream to powder. It's just a really deep purple. To dupe this one, I used the shade, I think this is from the It's a Mood palette. It's called Had to Be, and it's from the It's a Mood palette. This one is a lot cooler than the shade Commitment. It has a lot more gray to it versus Commitment that has a lot more warmth. So this is Commitment. You can see kind of the warmth pulling through where it's like a little more sheer, and then you can see how gray Had to Be is in comparison. Next up, we have the shade Blind, which is a metallic silver. Very beautiful. I did have a hard time duping this one. Everything I had was either too warm or too cool. So this is the shade that I used in my palette. It's the shade Wench from the Gather Round Sisters palette from last Halloween. I also have the shade Magnetic Moon, but it's too cool. I feel like the shade Blind kind of lies in between these two shades. This one's a little too blue toned, this one's a little too yellow toned. I feel like the perfect dupe would be somewhere in the middle. Next up, we have the shade Soul, which is like a matte, warm mauve, kinda. And to dupe this one, I took from the Fine Feathered palette again. This is the shade Take a Gander, and I think it's pretty similar. It is a little more warm toned. This is the shade from Natasha Denona, and this is from Colourpop. You can see that the Colourpop one does have a little more almost orangey to it. Next up, we have the shade Passion, which is like a metallic berry. And to dupe this, I took the shade Woo from the Colourpop 5-Pan Quince. It's not really similar. I would say that the Natasha Denona has a lot more red undertone to it. This one's almost like a wine, whereas this one kind of pulls a little more like brownish. So they are a little bit different again, but this is the closest that I could find. Next up, we have the shade Intense, which is kind of like a warm toned medium pink. I swatched this while my hand was a little damp still, so please excuse the swatch. But to dupe this one, I used the shade Boardwalk from the Malibu Barbie palette. And this is the Natasha Denona, and this is the Colourpop. The Colourpop is a little bit deeper, this one's a little bit lighter, but overall I think it would give a similar effect in a look. Next up, we have a matte pale pink called Valentine, and I didn't have anything even remotely similar to this shade. So I kind of just put like the closest pink I had into it. I really want the Colourpop Cloud Spun palette, and the other pink one, I can't remember what it's called off the top of my head. I just don't have a lot of pinks from Colourpop, and I feel like I'd like to have them so I can use them to dupe in these videos. So I used the shade Island Tune from the Colourpop and Animal Crossing 5-Star Island quad. So this is the shade Valentine. As you can see, it's a lot paler than this one. and it's a lot more of like a baby cool toned pink, whereas this one has some warmth to it that this one's missing. So again, not a great dupe, but I just wanted to put something in there. And lastly, we have the shade Dream, which again is a cream to powder. It's a really nice shade. I don't think I've used it yet, but it's really pretty when it's swatched. To dupe this one, I use the shade Serene Sable from the La Belle of the Ball quad. This is also from the Animal Crossing collab. This is the shade Dream, and then this is the Colourpop shade. This one's a little bit lighter, and it might be a little more blue toned than this one. So again, not a dupe, especially because they're not the same formula, but they are similar in color. So those are the swatches of my dupes. I had a hard time with a lot of them getting an exact dupe, so I am happy that I purchased this palette. I did have things that were similar, but just like not quite right, you know? And I find that with Natasha Denona a lot. She has a lot of beautiful shades that just have something that's a little bit different about them. And I feel like in my mind, that's how I kind of justify the price point, because I'm like, it's unique. As you can see in an eye look, is it really that unique? I don't know. So if you want to see how I got this eye look using the Natasha Denona palette and the Colourpop palette, then just keep watching. Also, my finger is stained. I don't know what shade that came from, but that's something to note. So yeah. Just keep on watching if you want to see how to get this eye look. Okay, my friends, so I am going to start out by prepping my lid with the e.l.f. Hydrating Camo Concealer. I'm going to start out with the Natasha Denona Love palette on this eye. This is a brand new, fresh e.l.f. Hydrating Camo. My first time using it. Oh, that's a little dark, isn't it? I thought I got the shade Light Peach last time. I thought it was going to be a good shade for me, because that's one I liked last time, I think. Or was it Light Beige? I'm gonna have to look. If this doesn't work out, I can always just buy a new one and gift this one to a friend. I have plenty of friends who are darker in skin tone than I am, which isn't saying much. I'm super pale, obviously. I don't know, I feel like that doesn't look too bad. So I think for this look, I wanna go for kind of like a neutrally eye and then add a pop of maybe purple and gold. We're gonna see how that goes. So first thing I'm gonna do is dip into this shade here called Soul, and I'm gonna use this as my crease color and a little bit on the outer corner apparently. I have used the palette, but I'm trying to use shades that I haven't used yet. Yeah, I kind of reached for the pinks first, so. Okay, so now that that's placed down, I'm gonna go in, usually I go in with a pressed powder, the Urban Decay or the KVD, but I'm gonna go into this light cream shade here called First. It looks like it'll be an okay highlight shade for me, so I'm gonna use that instead, just to maximize how many colors I'm using in this look. Also, that concealer could use a bit of lightening up. Oh, that doesn't look like it's gonna lighten it up at all. Oh, that's very pink. Okay, well, we're still gonna go with it, I guess. It looks so light in the pan though. So then I'm just gonna work on blending out that Soul shade now that the rest of my lid is set. So I'm just taking more of that on the same brush and just kind of working on buffing this out, which judging by how it's going, it might take a little bit. Okay, then I think I want to add a little bit of a deep purple to the very outer corner. I'm gonna, oh no, I lied. I'm supposed to be using my Natasha Denona. I'm not mixing and matching here. I'm gonna go into this shade here. I think it's called Trust, yeah. And I'm just taking this on like a little pencil brush, and I'm going to use this just on the very outer corner to provide a little bit of depth there. Then I'm gonna grab a little more concealer on the back of my hand, and I'm gonna do a bit of a cut crease action. And then I think I'm gonna go in with a mixture of the two neutral shades, this shade here called Lifetime, and then this one here called Transparent. I have used one of them, I just can't remember which one, so I'm gonna mix them and apply that on the lid. I'm just gonna apply this kind of on the inner half here. And then just for a little pop of purple, I'm gonna go into this shade here called Pure Love, and I'm just gonna apply this kind of on the outer portion of the lid where this gold light lid shade would meet the outer corner. And then I'm just gonna flip the brush and kind of go back and forth right on that transition there just to blend things together. And then I'm taking a little more of that Trust shade and I'm just applying it a little bit over top of the shimmery purple, just to kind of, again, blend that in. It always ends up darker than I was hoping to go, but that's okay. I'm gonna go in with my KVD tattoo liner. I don't know if I'm gonna add a wing today. Okay, so this look was already a bit more bold than I was anticipating on going, so I'm gonna skip the wing for today. And now let's do the other eye using my duped palette, and we can see how close I actually got. Kind of nervous for this part. So I'm doing the same thing, prepping with the same concealer. Then I'm going to go into this shade right here on the same brush. I've wiped off all of the previous color on a paper towel, but I want to use the same brushes so I can achieve a similar look, hopefully. And I'm just kind of applying that obviously in the same areas. Then I'm going to go in with this shade here and just apply that to the brow bone. This shade is also proving to be a bit hard to blend. Okay, and then just like the other side, I'm gonna take a purple. I might actually mix these two to kind of get it closer to what's going on this side, because I did have a hard time duping the purples, so. And I'm just going to apply it. This side is definitely pulling warmer than this one, but I mean, that's fine. Then again, I'm just going to do a little cut crease action here. Then I'm gonna mix these two shades here and just apply that to my lid. And then for the outer corner, I'm going to go in with a mixture of these two shades because I think this one's pulling a bit too cool toned. Then to this eye, I'm just gonna add just a tiny little smidge of this really deep shade right here, because as you can see, this one has a little more depth going on to the look. Then like the other side, I'm going to apply some liquid liner. Okay, so I'm just gonna pop off camera quickly, finish up the lower lash line, add lashes, and then we can compare how these two are looking. So far, this one looks a lot more pinky warm than this one. This one's pulling a lot more purple. They are significantly different, honestly. So I think what I'm actually gonna do, just before I pop off camera, I'm gonna go into a little bit of this shade here. Oh, hold on. This shade here, it's a little more of an orangey pink shade. I just feel like adding this might make it a little more pinky, like the other side. Maybe I just need to accept the fact that I am using different palettes and had a hard time duping, so. Okay, so I will just pop off camera and I'll be right back. Okay, my friends, so I've finished the rest of my face and I will zoom you in so you can see the looks up close. So obviously this is the Natasha Denona side and this is the Colourpop side. You guys can tell me which one you prefer in the comments down below. I think they are pretty similar. I think the Natasha Denona looks like it has a nicer blend to it, despite all of my effort that went into the Colourpop side. But that's, you know, expected with the price tag. I would expect a higher quality for sure. I don't know, I really like how both sides came out. I do think I prefer the Natasha Denona side slightly. You guys can let me know what you think, but I think that is the side that I prefer. Overall, I do think that this palette was a good purchase for me. I did have quite a hard time duping it with shades from Colourpop, so that always tells me that a palette is pretty unique. Specifically the shimmers I had a really hard time duping, not as much the mattes, except for the formula, the cream to powder formula. I don't have anything even remotely similar in my collection, just similar shades, but not really a similar formula. So I do overall think that this is a good purchase for me, especially because I can pop these out. I can really see myself using these neutrally tones for my kit. And I do like how the cream to powder finish doesn't have any fallout. So again, for my kit, that would be great. And I think that is everything from me today. Thank you so much for tuning in and thank you so much for watching if you've made it this far. Please don't forget to subscribe if you want to. If you don't, that's okay. I just really appreciate you being here. It helps out my channel so very much by you watching, so thank you. Please leave any video requests you may have in the comments down below and I will see you in my next video. Bye guys!